have an NBA schedule in front of us. In the meantime, she has I don't say a front row seat, like a third row seat, wherever they put them for each.
Depends on which arena.
Yeah, depends on which arena. And she joins us right now pre-Boston. Good morning, Kayte. It's Dave and Jason.
Good morning, fellas.
How you doing?
Oh, peachy. How about y'all?
Peachy.
Post-holiday blues, right?
Oh, gosh. No, not post-holiday blues, but I am really sick and tired of taking down holiday decorations. That's for sure.
Have you considered it's because you put up like a literal Disneyland?
Well, I haven't considered it. I know that that's the case. Yes.
Maybe a little.
So they're all put away or no?
No, trees down. A lot of the garland and stuff is down, but I've got to organize it and label it and all the things.
Label it.
How's Mark's arm?
Yeah, I think he's okay. Yeah.
For you, those of you who don't know the reference,
I don't know the reference.
Who was what was the shot? I forget.
I think it was the dunk by Malik.
It was the big yelling dunk by Malik, and Kayte almost broke Mark's arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I might have hit Mark in the arm. I was excited. Yeah.
Foul on Kayte.
So we've had these conversations with numerous people, and it's always delicate because nobody wants to bury Mike Brown. Nobody wants to be disrespectful. And I know you don't. And we all knew Mike, and you knew Mike, and he's a wonderful dude. But where you land, obviously there's a difference. You lost 6 in a row. You have won 5 in a row. I don't count the Laker game, by the way, because that was so weird. There's a difference. So what difference are you seeing from your vantage point between the Mike Brown Kings of 2 weeks ago and the Doug Christie Kings?
Right. Well, first off, they lost 6 in a row, which, there's going to be times during a season where you kind of hit the skids a little bit. And then you're always going to rebound, right? It's never, you're not, they're too good to be a team that, just continues losing and a downhill slide for very long. They have the pieces and the ability to kind of set themselves on the right track again. So, I think it's a combination of that and the fact that, when there is a coaching change, there usually is a little bit of a shift in terms of motivation and playing and all of that. But, I think it's really important to say, like, obviously Mike Brown is a tremendous coach, and coaches never stay anywhere for the length of their career. I mean, Eric Spoelstra is an exception to the rule. Greg Popovich is an exception to the rule. But there's a reason that coaches have so many guarantees in their contract, because it is a really volatile kind of field to be in. But when it comes to Doug Christie, I believe it was Malik Monk that said, something to the effect of, there's a lot of respect in the locker room for him because of the fact that he did play. And the type of player that Doug was on the NBA level, college level, throughout his career, he was a very motivational, lead with actions type of player. And I think that, players respond to that in a really, really good way. And, you look at his relationship with Domantas Sabonis, because that was his guy. He's been with him the last few years, traveling with him, working him out, working on his game. And, he and Leandro Barbosa. And, you look to when Keon got nailed by that screen in Golden State and Doug's reaction, and it was Domas that kind of let him off the court and calmed him in that sense. And to me, it speaks a lot about their relationship. But, the changes on the floor in terms of what I'm seeing schematically is Doug has talked about simplifying the offense, which to a large degree, the offense already was very, simplified. It's a series of actions. There was a lot of freedom on the floor, but I think now it's even more simplified in the fact that they are out there. At some points, it feels like it's almost like a pickup game. They have complete freedom to make decisions, make reads, not necessarily running plays. And at times it looks a little chaotic, but it's about them figuring it out. And it was the other night that Doug said something in pregame media. He said, I'd rather teach players how to play than to run plays. And so that's what we're seeing to a certain degree, is their kind of evolution of coming together, the five that are on the floor at any given moment, and figuring out how to gain advantages out there and how to use each other and where to get, shots for people and who's going and how you get them more involved. So to me, that's the biggest change on the offensive end. And then on the defensive end, there's just a lot more deliberate kind of, actions in terms of switching things up on a more regular basis. And a lot of coaches do this to where we saw Miami do it the other day. They run their defensive schemes, in the first half, and it's pretty similar, a lot of the same stuff. And then in the, third quarter, we saw them go to a lot of zone defense. We saw them switch things up and you try to disrupt. And to me, I feel like the Kings right now are being very sporadic with their defense, and they're jumping out and blitzing when players are coming across half court, but they'll do that one possession. They won't do it for another 3 or 4, but you keep them guessing. So to me, on the defensive side of the ball, there's just a lot more, what's the best word for it? I want to say chaos, but it's organized chaos. It's planned chaos. And it really is keeping, their opponents guessing and never being comfortable in terms of like, when is the blitz coming? What are we going to see when we cross half court this time? Picking them up full court, making them have to work. You got the, 8-second violation the other day when Tyler Hero didn't get it across court. It's things like that I'm seeing.
As we're talking with Kayte Christensen, Kings television analyst. Kayte, I think, your point and Malik's point, I guess, too, about Doug being a former player. I not only think it's that too. I think pairing that, Kayte, with like Doug could have played in his career in Charlotte or New York and still would have been a former player. But the fact that he not only played here, played on the most successful team here, was in radio here, worked television here. I think everything he's messaging about what this team means to this community has probably landed just about perfectly in the locker room. I love the Beam example last week when he took the team up there and how he tied that all together. I mean, again, as a former player, but yet a former player in this city, I think the timing has been perfect for him and for them.
Without a doubt. And, obviously when Doug kind of came back to Sacramento and started, working on the broadcast, first he was, pre, half, and post analyst and then moving into the booth. Like, there was one thing I always knew about Doug. First of all, I have to say, I've worked with a lot of former players on the broadcast side. I've never seen anyone that prepared and put in the work the way that Doug Christie does. And that's how he approaches coaching as well. And I knew when he was on the broadcast side, he always wanted to be on the coaching side. That's how much he loves the game. That's where he feels like he can make the biggest impact. And, then he went over to the coaching ranks, and he's been on a couple different staffs with Luke Walton, Alvin Gentry. He's gotten the opportunity, and then with Mike Brown, to really be on some great coaching staffs and learn from some great coaches and people that have been in the game and in the coaching ranks for quite a while, which makes a difference. And the work that he put in as an assistant and developing guys and being able to be on the floor again. I always knew that's what Doug wanted to do, and it's what he's meant to do. But when it comes to the city specifically, Doug does have an affinity for Sacramento, and he said it from the very, very beginning. He has unfinished business to do here. And that is a genuine, heartfelt, emotion for him. It means a lot to him to be able to impact this organization and therefore impact this community, because, he was part of the team that really felt the support of this community at its highest level. And so he wants these guys to feel that, but he also wants them to understand, if you give that to them, what they give back in return. And so to me, it's really interesting to watch him kind of emote his feelings of, what he wasn't able to do in his career, and also in part on this team, how important they are to the city and how much support they will get if they go out there, win or lose, and compete at a high level every night and really show with their play that they are giving it their all every night, win or loss.
Kayte Christensen joining us. We asked this question earlier, and you can't say both. You got to pick one. The Kings on a 5-game winning streak. they're off until Fridays. You'll be taking off today for Boston. Is the break more of a good or a bad thing with the momentum going, but also maybe some injuries to heal up?
It's a good thing for the fact that, anytime you can get some rest in an NBA schedule and also more importantly, be on the practice floor. Like that's really, really important, especially considering a coaching change, right? If you can get on the floor and work through some things and have that practice time, it really is a great thing, no matter what. You have momentum, yes, but you can only take momentum so far before you really, from a physical standpoint, need to be able to rest, to get some recovery for your body. For some guys that are injured, with it being De'Aaron Fox, the one that is injured right now, he's a critical piece of this team. So, you look at it that way, and it's a great thing. And you go to this road trip. I looked at the itinerary yesterday. We're going to be in Boston for a while, and in that time, there will be practice tomorrow, the game, and then they're staying the night. There will be practice the next day before going to Chicago, staying the night in Chicago. There will be a practice in Chicago before busing to Milwaukee. Like this is really, really important for them to have that time on the practice floor.
Interesting layout too. There's no back-to-backs. I mean, this would be a challenging trip too, especially in the groove they are in, the confidence they seemingly have. And Kayte, what I've loved, like if we just look at the last two games, it couldn't have been better. I mean, they were so sharp offensively, defensively against the Warriors. And, the other night that felt like a will grind. Hey, just find a way to win. So that, they're doing it differently right now in this win streak. And that's got to please, Doug Christie, the coaching staff, and the players to some extent here. Yeah,
you look at that Golden State game, and it is probably the best offensive, defensive game collectively that I've seen all year long. And, that was 2 straight games for them. I believe it was Memphis we played before that. Who was it we played before Golden State?
Memphis. Yeah, Memphis and Philly.
Memphis. Yeah. So it was, in a 2-game stretch, they made 43s and shot 44% from beyond the arc. And then they struggled to shoot the 3 against Miami. And so, the fact that, you come off a couple games where when this team is shooting the 3 the way they did in those 2 games and the way that we know that they're capable of, they're not going to make, 19, 20 every night, but, you don't want them to be living in the low 30s, which is what they've done, for a lot of games this year. It's really difficult for any team to win NBA games that way because the 3-point shot is such a big, piece of the pie offensively. And so you fast forward to the Miami game where the 3 isn't falling and they shot like 20% from in the paint in the first quarter. And then they flipped the script. They were outscored 18-4 in the paint in the first quarter, and they outscored them 18-4 in the paint in the second quarter. Like they were making it very difficult for them to score in the paint. They weren't, knocking down their 3. It really was like a grind it out, who wants it more type of game. Really and was to win a game that way. That's really, really important that they can say, hey, we have a body of work where we've been able to do it with the 3 and a body of work where we've just had to grind it out and we're capable of it.
Are you okay with Ellis Island being Keon Ellis's nickname?
Oh my God.
Like how they had Revis Island in football, like the defenders got him out on an island. And they're not escaping.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to use it.
Well, that's a no. Wow.
Yeah.
You don't really use a lot of nicknames.
Do you use any nicknames?
No, it's not really my style. It has to come naturally. I'm not the type of person to write anything down or try to pre-plan anything. And there's, you also think of the fact that, Doug really wasn't that way either. But Jerry Reynolds, who did the job for years, who I absolutely adore, he had so many great catchphrases, but that was Jerry. I'm not trying to be anybody else. It's just, what comes naturally during the game. And I have found over the years, what is this, my 4th season doing it in the booth now? My tendency is really, for whatever reason, I really try to explain the game. I try to make sense of it. I try to keep it in its most basic form. I'm not going to use, things like, the spinoless action or the pistol action or refer to things, in terminology that they use a lot in the NBA now, like, oh, they redded that, or they blacked it, or this is I don't do that. I keep it at a very basic form. So hopefully the majority of the people watching are going to be able to understand it better. So that's just, I guess my style and who I am. And I'll let all the catchphrases and the stuff, be left to my partners. They can do that.
What about his fans being called Keon? Would you consider that? No.
Oh my God.
I'm just saying.
What is wrong with no?
Trying to get, trying to.
But how, to actually focus on the subject of this conversation, how freaking fantastic has he been defensively?
Incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, he's special. He is special. It's so much fun to watch him play and to know, and this is great for people, young kids playing the game now. It's like, he wasn't a defensive minded player. He figured it out. And this is very much the way that I was going into the WNBA. Like, I remember a conversation with one of my teammates that had come, my college teammates that had come to see me play in the WNBA my first season. And she was just like, why aren't they using you offensively? Well, in college, everybody is the focus of their offense. And it's a little bit different now with NBA players because they come out after a year and they might have averaged like 8 points in college or whatever. But, a lot of the time it's like the people that are going into the league were the primary focus offensively. They were, the first option. They're offensively gifted, but then you get into the league where everybody is that way. And Keon's like, I figured out very early on that defense is where I needed to focus on making my impact so that I could separate myself and give myself a skill that, any team, any coach is going to appreciate and want and has value on the floor. And my goodness, he's just so good at anticipation, being in the right spots. He communicates well, quick, athletic. Like, he's really special on the defensive end.
Since the new year, most deflections. Number 3, Outsar Thompson with 18. Number 2, Dyson Daniels with 21. Number 1, Keon Ellis with 33, including 14.
He had like 14 deflections the other night.
Yeah, and they gave the award. Crazy. They gave the crown to Domas. What's up with that?
Well, you need to talk to them, Dave.
Yeah,
but sometimes those things come down to, I think the game that DeMar got it, it wasn't about what he had done the whole game. It was about what he did, like right down the stretch, a couple really important defensive plays at the end of the game that sealed it for them. But I will say this though. I was super impressed with Domas's defense throughout the entire game. I mean, he and Bam Adebayo, and Mark always tries to highlight this a little bit, but it's harder on the broadcast. Like, those two, there is a legit rivalry between them because a lot of the time they're in competition at their position for an all-NBA team. And, in kind of, the smaller NBA circles that are focusing on these things a little bit more, that's always a topic of conversation. And so, the players are fully aware of it. So they really battle against each other. And man, like, Bam was a non-factor in that game, like a non-factor. He really never got his footing and never was able to make a legitimate contribution at important moments, especially.
All right. Well, you made a contribution at an important moment. We appreciate it. And have a safe flight to Boston. Eat some clam chowder, and we'll talk to you soon. I don't know.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Right, I don't know. What else do you do?
I don't know.
It's Boston.
Ellis Island.
Not that far away.
You're trying to get her to get to Ellis Island.
Yeah. It's a good nickname.
I like that.
Fine with that.
We are kind of Jerry was that. We're kind of a nickname city.
We are a nickname city.
Yeah.
I think she should do more nicknames.
It's fine.